Well, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday liberals had their second iteration of the No Kings protests, where they go out in like 2,000 different cities and coordinate it throughout the United States and rise up against Donald Trump, who they view as a king. And they say, I guess he's abusing his executive power, his authority. And that goes to the whole thing where it's like Trump 2028, all the memes. And it's just they've got so much TDS. So they went out yesterday, and with all the college football going on, with everything, and if it's a fall Saturday, nobody cared. It's totally coordinated, it's paid for, it is completely inorganic. And the reason that they do this, and we've got videos here, it's just like, here they are, bunch of old white women, old white guy, maybe some cucks, dancing against Trump and against the supposed fascism. And now you see liberals on Reddit, the younger liberals, freaking out and saying, well, this is really bad. It's all old people. They take them from the nursing home. And even you look like Atlanta, Georgia, it's all white people. Atlanta's like 50% black. They're all white. They're all old white women. It's old liberal white women that are at these protests. And you wonder, well, why do they keep doing this? It doesn't accomplish anything. The reason is for political ammunition. So they can say, well, look at all the people rising up against Trump. Look at the biggest protests that have been organized throughout the United States in the history of the country. Several of them are against Trump. Well, it doesn't make any sense to compare the social media age, where it's a lot easier to mobilize people together, versus the entire history of the United States. Of course, they don't care, they don't know to compare the context to these people, but a lot of this is to try and gain political leverage against Trump by saying, we had 2 million people or 1 million people or whatever the number is mobilize against Trump. That's how hated Trump is. And these people chant for democracy, and I mean, they don't even have the popular vote cope, which they previously did back in 2017, Trump's first term, because Trump lost the popular vote, but they chant about democracy and say this is what it looks like. Donald Trump winning and exerting his executive authority, that's what democracy looks like. Trump wins the popular vote. He wins all the swing states. He won fair and square. So he's in the White House and he is deporting illegal immigrants. That's what they're protesting. They are protesting democracy. When Trump says during the 2024 campaign, I'm going to deport all illegals, then he puts laws in place and funds ICE to the tune of $175 billion to deport the illegals. That is democracy. These people are completely hypocritical. But understand, the point of these protests is to say, look at how many people dislike Trump because they can mobilize, which is the old white women. They don't want you to know that. That's who goes to these things on a Saturday afternoon. Are young people going to go to these things? No. You look at the overall demographics of these protests and you'll certainly understand. They're saying this is the biggest fraud in American history. MSNBC falsely aired a video from, like, what is this? This is being called the biggest fraud in American history. This is the type of stuff on X that's just like, this is just slop. All right, it's like the biggest fraud in American history. We'll go past that. But this is what happened. MSNBC falsely aired a video from 2017 claiming it was live foot. Oh, this is MSN. No, this is not what happened. I think they're misrepresenting exactly what happened. But the point is that people on X, liberals on X, took video from 2017 and said, look, this is the No Kings protest from today. And obviously it wasn't. It was like some woman's march from 2017. And you can see all the trees. There's no fall foliage. And it's a total sham. But like this account, these are the problems with these accounts. Like 5 things wrong in this tweet. But yeah, that's basically the No Kings protest. The point is they try and use it as political leverage to say, look at how many people protest against Trump, so that must mean Trump is extremely unpopular, when he has a higher second-term approval rating than both Obama and Bush. Yes, you can add nuance to it and say, well, Trump isn't serving consecutive terms, so there's not as much fatigue as there was with the other 2 presidents. Okay, but still, it just goes to show you how ridiculous it is. Like, Trump's so unliked, but he's way more liked than he was in his first term. And comparing to Obama and Bush, he's got a higher approval rating in his second term than they do at the exact same point. So you add context like that, and then they take videos out of context. They say, well, it's 1 million people, it's 1.5 million, it's 2 million. Yeah, it's a lot easier to mobilize people to protest when you've got social media and the internet age, and you can contact as many people. And obviously this is paid for. This just doesn't happen organically with 2,000 cities. But again, they want to use it as political leverage to say all these people hate Trump. He's the most unliked president in American history, when the approval rating does not say that. And that's even before the bump we expect with the approval rating, with the stock market, with the rate cuts, with everything, with the war ending, possibly the meeting with Putin, maybe another war ending. It's all going to impact it. And even this, I mean, this just goes to show you, last 3 midterms, generic ballot polls, how liked is Trump? Well, Trump's first term, Dems were 9.2 points up in the generic ballot composite polling. In 2021, this is after Biden won, Dems were still up by 2.3, and now in 2025, about a year before the midterms, it is Democrats an average of 1.6. And remember, with all of the redistricting and the Voting Rights Act, the Section 2 being abolished, you could be looking at the Democrats having to win by 5.5 to 6 points in the generic ballot to keep or to take the House. And so they're up by 1.6. I mean, it's still a ways away. You can see breaking, not a lot of young people, a lot of gray hair at the No Kings protest in Boston. That's NBC Boston reporting. No Kings protests clearing up rather early in major cities across the nation. Well, it rained in a few cities. People just all disperse. They all leave. None of these people, it's just so inorganic. It's so fake. It's not like there's this crazy energy to protest this terrible fascist, because that's just not what Trump is. It's a misrepresentation. So all the protests are protesting something that's not really happening, calling Trump a king. That's obviously them saying, oh, he's fascist and he's abusing power. But it's just all old people. It's old white women. That's who's at these protests. And what they're protesting is really not the correct representation of what's actually happening. So again, there's just no energy to it because they know it's a fraudulent protest in the first place. But they just want to say, look at all these people protesting and rising up against the horrible Donald Trump. It's a total misrepresentation. This is No Kings in Atlanta, Georgia, a city where the largest racial demographic is by far black people. 90% of the crowd is white, filled with people that are in nursing homes, basically. You've got September party registration, Republicans plus 30K, Dems minus 55K. Yeah, so that's basically it. That's the No Kings. You have to understand why they're doing this. They want to use it as political leverage against Trump and say, look at how many people hate him. Look at, these are the biggest organized protests in U.S. history. Well, what does that even matter when it's way easier to organize protests in 2025 than it was in, I mean, really any year previously to this? We just get more online every year. It's easier to do things like this. And it's like, you don't think the Republicans could have organized a major protest against Biden if they wanted to? Like, so what are we doing? We're picking hairs on who can attract the biggest protests, who can spend the most money on attracting the biggest protest crowds in 2,200 different cities, or however many, cities they try to do this in, which it was around 2,000 cities, I believe. Think about the amount of money that goes into that to have, you could say, well, people come out organically, right? But the entire apparatus and infrastructure of a protest like this, in terms of hiring people to get the word out, obviously those things are going to cost money. It doesn't come out of nowhere and it's a bunch of grassroots people doing this. To organize something like this on a certain date in all these cities, determining which cities you want to do it in, and then getting the word out through advertisement, obviously that all costs money and it has to be organized. So when they say, oh, it's all grassroots people, it's total bullshit. But, when it comes to these No Kings things, it's just like, what is this really doing? That's something that people always argue. It doesn't really do anything. And they had one of these back in June or maybe May. I don't even remember exactly. But there was another one of these things 4 or 5 months ago. It doesn't accomplish anything other than them saying, well, look at how many people are rising up against Trump. The problem is what you're protesting is really not what's happening. You're misrepresenting it. You think Trump is this horrible fascist who's abusing power. That's clearly not what's happening within the U.S. government. If that were happening, why does Trump obey court orders from liberal judges who has to go to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court has to shoot it down? Why wouldn't he just surpass that or bypass them? It doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't Trump just rip up the Constitution if he's such a fascist? Why would Trump listen to Congress at all? Why would the government be shut down? Why not just override the Democrats because they're the minority party in both the House and the Senate? It's a misrepresentation to call these protests are a complete misrepresentation. That's why there's no energy. That's why it's a bunch of old white people. And it's this fake obsession with Trump. Well, I mean, the obsession is not fake, but it's just like this fake caricature of Trump. The biggest problem with a lot of these protesters, I would say, it's just like we're so far off when it comes to these people understanding the founding of America, who created America, why is America so successful. You know, these people would assign things incorrectly based on inaccurate history teachings, and they don't understand, and they think, well, the future has to be a certain way. It's like, oh, it was all immigrants. Yeah, it's all Western European Protestant white people. That's who created the country. Yes. So those are not the people we're bringing into the country. So it's probably going to be a worse situation for us in the future. It's a very hard math equation. I know it's very challenging. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I would love to go into a deep dive video nuanced on immigration, the problems with it, and just the history and just the inaccuracies many of these liberal white women believe. Oh my God, it's so insane. But I mean, that's really the issue. And the other issue is, you know, I saw Gavin Newsom tweet out like a U.S. flag, and he's trying to do the caricature of Trump because Trump would tweet out USA. But it's like with liberals, it doesn't even work when you tweet out the United States like flag, the actual just symbol. Because half of them think the U.S. is the American flag is racist. So it's like, does it really work when a liberal does it? I saw that and it just looked wrong because of their party. Because half their party thinks the flag itself is racist. Or like it's a symbol of white patriotism or nationalism. So I thought it was funny when I saw that because it's just so inorganic. Like a liberal being patriotic. Patriotic to who? The United States? Do you know the historical policy of the United States in terms of our immigration? I don't think you like the founding fathers too much if you did. But and many of them have done the revisionist history and say that the statue should come down. And then you get stuff like this. Trump is literally hated, LOL. Trump beat Kamala by over 2 million votes. Right, it's like mobilizing and being the loudest doesn't mean you're in the majority. And it's so funny they're using this premise of these protests when in reality, they even lost the popular vote. A Republican had not won the popular vote since 2004. Man, the Democrats they're such a popular party in the United States. No, they just import immigrants. Immigrants become naturalized. They vote Democrat about 70% of the time. Oh, they're so popular. Maybe with foreigners who become citizens. Yes. But they're not even popular enough to... Now the Hispanics are voting conservative. As we saw in 2024. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you like the video down below. Thank you for watching.